Hello, my name is Michelle Bianco, and I'm the Channel Program Specialist behind our Grand Prix programs. And thank you for viewing this training today. As you know, this quarter's focus is around networking, specifically on attaching networking solutions to your existing Citrix customer base. And this training will provide you with the selling and positioning techniques which you'll need for the call down. This brings us to our first bullet, which is networking attach. And this piece will be presented by our product specialist, Derek Yee. On our second agenda item, Conversations with the Field, Derek Yee will have a discussion with Brian Parker, Director of Networking Sales, around best practices to follow during these conversations. We hope you find the content valuable, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce Derek Yee.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this quarter's Grand Prix, specifically around networking attach. And what we're going to be covering today is sort of the new sales messaging that we're pushing forward as far as attaching networking solutions to many of the core Citrix virtualization and mobility type solutions that are out there. So to get things started, I can advance the slide here. There we go. All right, so the purpose of this training really is to get you familiar with the new value proposition around networking attaching to your current Citrix deals. We'll review sort of the existing prior to the new messages being pushed out, what we like to call the Attach 2.0. And as Michelle mentioned, we'll finish off in the last half of this segment with interview with Brian Parker. So let's go ahead and get things started. All right, so networking attached today. So we've had trainings in the past specifically around how do you attach NetScaler? What's the value of NetScaler for a Zen app, Zen desktop environment? And there's lots of noise out there, lots of words that you can use, you know, and some of the key functionalities that you want to really sort of kind of build on and keep in mind this still stands true. What we're actually giving you now with the 2.0 messaging is, you know, additional layers of attach modes that you can bring NetScaler and CloudBridge into your deals. So with that said, you know, currently, you know, you guys position NetScaler to provide high availability, gives you geographic failure capabilities for disaster recovery. We also have a big attach around secure remote access using NetScaler Gateway, and then of course being able to consolidate web interface onto a NetScaler appliance as opposed to having it on a separate server in your environment. So what's changing? So with the Attach 2.0, we now put a focus on, you know, two core solutions for Citrix, that being a Zen Desktop and Zen Mobile. So virtualization, mobility focus, and we've sort of organized it into, you know, four main buckets if you want to really kind of push the value, and that being, you know, the best end user experience, providing application visibility, enhanced security, and of course, single vendor support. And I'll dig into these a little bit more as we advance in the following slides. So under end user experience, you know, why is end user experience important? You know, we talk about, you know, there's an entire industry built up around, you know, improving application performance, really so that users can be more productive. And when it comes to the attached messaging, these are the various components that you want to really consider when it comes to, you know, bringing networking into the discussion for a Citrix customer. There's NetScaler Gateway web interface. We'll take a look at that. For those that are advancing onto the new storefront technologies, how NetScaler positions itself in front of these environments. And lastly, we'll finish up with some discussions around Zen Mobile using the new NetScaler connector built in as part of that solution. And last but not least, how we can really help accelerate the Zen app, Zen desktop environments by utilizing the CloudBridge technology. Okay, so NetScaler Gateway web interface, and the value proposition is pretty clear. It's just a simple, consolidated solution for Zen app and Zen desktop that gives you one box that you can do gateway VPN, SSL VPN connections, and web interface can simply be installed on the same appliance, hence freeing up you know, additional server resources on the Citrix farm. It provides easy access to applications, really sort of that any, being able to connect remotely from anywhere on any type of device. It's a consistent user experience across the board. And in case of failover, I mean, they're seamlessly reconnecting so users don't need to log back in again by having this built into the NetScaler. And of course, GSLB, when it comes to disaster recovery, NetScalers do provide high availability for business continuity. So in case a production center comes down, users will notice very little disruption as they're seamlessly reconnected to a healthy data center that's in your colo site. Okay, so I want to spend a few minutes, not too much, but to give a little glimpse around Storefront 2.0 and why this is important. So in the attached messaging, we're really starting to see the desktops team start moving away from web interface to have a broader discussion around utilization of Storefront. And Storefront 2.0 is considered sort of the next generation of web interface, sort of the next step to providing really sort of that enterprise app store type experience. And I'll show you a quick rundown as far as, if you want to position Storefront versus web interface. Keep in mind, web interface does have a published end of life. There is not support for all the new receivers and all the new devices that's tied into web interface. So the momentum moving forward really is directed towards utilization of Storefront. And you can find several resources on the Citrix support site that talks about really how you can run Storefront in parallel with web interface. And keep in mind, this being sort of the next generation, all future development will be built on Storefront, and you'll see a vast reduction as resources being invested into web interface moving forward. So what does NetScaler do so far as providing value and a front ending for the Storefront environment? All of the same concepts kind of keep coming into play. So we talk about, Storefront sort of being that new server environment or that new connect point. When you put NetScaler in front of these environments, I mean, it is providing, just the typical health monitoring and everything that it had done previously for a web interface, but we're now looking at Storefront sort of as the new destination that's being protected with the NetScaler. Self-service simplicity is enabled. Users can simply connect to these environments. The configuration's a lot easier. They can use simply their work email address to have automatic configurations to the applications that they're needing. All right, so moving forward on to Zen Mobile. Zen Mobile really being sort of a big mobility focus for Citrix. And what NetScaler can do for these environments is a couple of things we'll take a look at here. So NetScaler has functionalities built into it. There's a new utility that's built with Zen Mobile, specifically designed to talk to NetScaler. So everything from providing micro VPN technologies, automatic single sign-on, being able to connect intranet type applications on mobile devices via Zen Mobile, all this is helped facilitated using the NetScaler. And what I'll show next is sort of the Zen Mobile NetScaler connector and what the upgrade opportunity is going to look like when positioning these solutions together. So on the left-hand side, you'll find really there are three key points as far as what NetScaler can do for a Zen Mobile environment. Zen Mobile has what are called XDM or Zen Mobile Device Manager servers. Simple load balancing story. It's a matter of protecting those servers so they don't become overwhelmed, ensuring that your environment is healthy and users are able to connect from their mobile devices. Active sync filtering is an option that's tied into XNC, or what we like to call the Zen Mobile NetScaler connector, that helps enable some of the whitelisting, blacklisting of certain devices to ensure those devices are authorized and secure before making a connection to the Exchange servers. And typically this is in play when users are wanting to sort of access from their native email clients, whether on an iOS or Android device. Last but not least is the micro VPN functionality, similar to NetScaler Gateway, except this is tied really to setting up an individual sort of a VPN connection per application that's set on that mobile device. Now on the right-hand side, you're going to find the sort of what the upgrade opportunity is going to look like from an opportunity standpoint. For each of these functionalities, So for example, with load balancing for Zen Mobile Device Manager, they can do that simply with just a standard edition of NetScaler, or they can utilize the VPX edition to do that as well. If they want to move up to take advantage of sort of the native email client and active sync filtering, caching is required. So they would definitely need to either purchase Enterprise Plus caching or to upgrade to Platinum altogether to be able to handle that. Keep in mind that the VPX editions do not offer the option to add caching to an Enterprise edition, so their only options would be to upgrade to Platinum altogether. And then, of course, with just the micro VPN technologies, that's a standard NetScaler gateway functionality, so they can get away with just doing a bare minimum so far as standard edition with that. Okay, so next up is let's talk about CloudBridge. So, we all know that Zen Desktop Platinum does give some entitlements to CloudBridge VPX appliances. So the customer really is sort of halfway down that path already, is really providing some acceleration for their HDX sessions. The only thing they would require is to have to purchase a physical device to be able to head in those virtual clients that are out there. Now, one thing we do want to bring to your attention, and you may have seen some notices on this, is there is an active promotion in play currently to trade in the old 8500, 8800 repeater appliances to make the upgrade to the CloudBridge 2000, 3000 boxes. Keep in mind, we do have an end of life that's been published on the 8500s and the 8800s, and they are scheduled to go end of sale in December of this year. So key points of differences to look at between the new platforms and the old. The new platforms are built in solid-state drives, and they will, of course, support the advanced WAN optimization features being planned for subsequent updates. The promotion in place right now does entitle the user, so if you've sold existing branch repeater appliances to some of your customers, you may want to go back to them and say, hey, these things now have a published end of life. They're offering a promotion right now through the end of this year, up to 10% discount on the trade-in from the old, purchasing the new appliances. So again, the story here when it comes to accelerating Zen apps and desktop, leverage the VPX entitlements that come with Zen Desktop Platinum. Zen App Platinum also provides some plugin access, but then the key messaging here really is to get a physical head-end appliance in place to be able to facilitate those connections. Citrix can accelerate ICA better than anyone out there. We own the ICA protocol. We're able to do a lot of things much better than many of our competitors can. We have the highest real-world scalability of HDX sessions. If you look at our data sheets for CloudBridge appliances, they publish quite clearly the number of sessions that are supported, and we certainly challenge any of our competitors to be able to post a similar statistics to be accountable for that. With the release of 7.0, we provide the option to accelerate video streaming using caching functionalities that can now reside on the branch. We can also provide some replication acceleration for NetApp. And then, of course, again, leverage the promotional pricing that's existing through the end of December. Okay, so the big focus, certainly with the Attach 2.0, is around sort of the new layers of visibility that we're providing with NetScaler Insight Center. You pretty much, you can't fix what you can't see, and when Insight Center was developed, it was pretty much used to help minimize the length of time that it takes to identify a problem. What we realized after talking to customers is that it actually took them less time to fix the issue than it did to actually figure out what the problem was between going back and forth with different parties. With Insight Center, we now provide really everything that's running through the NetScaler appliance. We're able to provide some metrics and visibility, identifying latency, bandwidth consumption, and this is something that was existing prior to where we integrate with tools like Splunk or SolarWinds, but the new introduction with 10.1 was something called HDX Insight. And HDX Insight is tightly integrated with Zen Desktop 7. So within Desktop Director, HDX Insight is actually able to feed certain metrics and analytics into the Director panel so that from a help desk standpoint, that your help desk person can actually look through that one screen and be able to help do some advanced troubleshooting for that user to determine where the problem resides. It's sort of that same single pane of glass motif where they can certainly have to find everything they need in one place. Now, the good news to you is in order to be able to leverage the HDX Insight capabilities is existing NetScaler customers are going to have to probably do some upgrades to be able to handle that. So, for instance, if you look here on this chart, if someone wants to take advantage of HDX Insight, which is the ability to really sort of read into the HDX or ICA protocol to provide those types of metrics, they need to have NetScaler Enterprise Edition at a minimum. The Enterprise Edition will give them real-time data reporting, but if they upgrade to Platinum, they will get sort of the full historicals that it can use, say, for trend analysis. Meanwhile, on the Zen Desktop side, they'd actually need to have Zen Desktop Platinum to really turn on the EdgeSight functionalities within Director. So, you know, there's been some rumblings about EdgeSight going away. So EdgeSight as a standalone product is no longer going to be available. It's actually now just bundled into as a feature set within Zen Desktop Director. So in other words, for Director to turn on these analytics, you must have them on Platinum Edition. You know, the other thing we've also had some customers come back with is that EdgeSight for ZenApp gives them pretty much a lot of the same stuff that HDX Insight does. Now, there are some key points of differences that we want to acknowledge here. So for the time being, you know, like we mentioned, EdgeSight is no longer being offered as a standalone offering. It's now bundled within Director. But, you know, the key things here, EdgeSight for ZenApp does have a published end of life, and that's for August 2016. And the points we really try to stress here is that anything with an end of life that's published, its timeline really is limited as far as investment of any future resources. You know, EdgeSight for ZenApp also does require installation of an agent on the endpoint devices, and that's usually an issue for a lot of customers, you know, from a resource consumption standpoint, much less from a security standpoint, having to install something on every device to be able to get these metrics. You know, using HDX Insight, NetScaler now becomes sort of the ultimate collector of all data. And again, a quick run through. So, you know, reducing time to resolution on your help desk calls can help increase employee productivity. Okay, so moving on, we'll talk a little bit about sort of the enhanced security offerings within NetScaler. So, of course, you know, you guys are pretty much familiar with these things as far as maintaining an access control list on the network layer, providing application layer security and layer 7 protection with the app firewall, and then, of course, NetScaler Gateway being able to provide sort of secure VPN connectivity to the applications on the inside from a remote user sitting on the outside. So these really sort of the three cores as far as how NetScaler really does help provide additional security for a ZenApp Zen Desktop environment. You know, ICA itself, if it's something that needs to be preserved when it comes to external access, and, you know, we offer full proxy for these connections, you know, proper integration with the secure ticketing authority, and then, of course, smart access. You know, many of our competitors will say that they can provide some of these similar things, but anytime it comes to something to do with ICA, just remember that Citrix really owns that protocol, and we really kind of handle it in sort of the most responsible way possible from a security standpoint. Many of our competitors will do some reverse engineering, so there is always the possibility that this can be compromised and provide a layer of susceptibility to your environment that you don't want to introduce. And then, of course, there is the joint solution that we have with Palo Alto Networks, really so that next generation firewall. We're partnered very closely with these folks, and they even have some upcoming events that you may want to take advantage of as far as how they provide additional layers of security for ZenApp and Zen Desktop. And then last but not least is the single vendor support. You know, this is probably, you know, eliminate the finger pointing. This is probably the most counterproductive way of getting anything done. Having one vendor to run everything for you, it really does help lower your cost of ownership and increase the time to resolution, and, you know, your users become more productive. Okay, so let's kind of wrap up from this, the key messages you want to kind of take away with this. You know, remember, we do have the trade it and save it promotion in place for legacy NetScaler gear that they can trade in, including competitor gear. Position the new appliances for CloudBridge and leverage the trade and promotional pricing that's out there. Upgrade to Platinum. Look at the appliance that the users are currently running, and look to maybe help upgrade the additions to Platinum, or maybe even bumping up to the next family of appliances to handle the additional workloads. And then position the attached message, probe for mobility initiatives to add NetScaler. Mobility is a hot topic. If they're considering any sort of BYO, this is another value point where NetScaler can add value with Set Mobile.